It was a place of high octane.
There was really no rules.
Fire.
I was thrown in the fire.
Burning rubber.
It was about having fun.
The legendary ad campaign that set it all off.
The most epic time in drag racing history.
Catering to over 60,000 spectators at the Summer National.
And the tragedy that led to its demise.
He went off the end of the drag strip and was killed.
It's the story of Raceway Park.
It was just a different time.
The men who built it.
He possibly or potentially lost all his money.
And the son who lived to tell the tale.
And I was a kid that saw it all.
Rich Knapp and his two brothers currently own Raceway Park.
There's very few things that go on at Raceway Park now compared to what it used to be. It's not like it used to be. It's and that's just the way it is. These are sky boxes to watch the races, but all these windows had to be carried up one at a time. And guess who carried them up? Me. I pretty much helped build this whole place.
His father, Richard Sr., his uncle Vinny, and his grandfather Vincent were the original owners.
I'm on the road. I'm on the road.
When my father and his brother Vinny Knapp were growing up, they liked drag racing and motors and engineering. And my grandfather had a construction company called Knapp Greco. He sold his shares, and shortly after that, he didn't really know what he wanted to do. I was laying on the floor in my father's arms in East Orange, New Jersey, when a minute and a half of drag racing came on from California. He jumped up and told my mother that, I know what we should do. We should build a drag strip. And my mother replied, she says, you should call your father right away. And he called his father, and shortly after that, they went up in his airplanes and searched for land, and they came across the farm in Englishtown, and they bought the property in 1964.
But the newly purchased land had a high water table, which made clearing the property for a drag strip a challenge. One day when the equipment got stuck in the mud, Rich's grandfather Vincent broke down. He was convinced he had wasted his entire life savings on a pipe dream.
In 1965, when they opened, not a lot of people came. And when my grandfather had cried on the bulldozer saying that he'd lost everything stuck in the mud, my grandfather cried again. He didn't think that he made a good decision with all of his money. I was there. I was there for the very first show. I actually have film of me and my three brothers. My father took this film. That's an amazing piece of history that I found that I didn't know existed.
The film that was discovered was one of many that document both the history of Raceway Park and the personal life of Rich's father.
This is interesting because they have no labels, so you never know what you're going to get.
One of his favorite finds to date is a film of his college-age father drag racing his Uncle Vincent.
Let me tell you something. When I saw that, that was a discovery of a lifetime. To see your dad drag racing his brother in the 60s, I never knew that he did this. This is my mom, probably pregnant with me, driving that Thunderbird that's right out there in the driveway. I consider this the car and the reason that Raceway Park was built. This was the car that he loved to drag race. I was brought to the hospital inside my mom in this car. I was brought home from the hospital in my mom's arms in this car. I knew that this was a time capsule that I had discovered. It was something that should not be thrown away, and it should be preserved. I actually still have the camera that the footage was taken with. These are the original offices from 1966. There's a lot of history right here. My grandfather would come in and park his car right here, and we'd go into the shop, and I did a lot of work out front here. It brings back a lot of memories. This is the back room, and up these stairs is the attic where all these films were discovered and all these pictures. Some of these pictures hadn't been seen since 1965. They were put up there and frozen in time. They were stacked all along these shelves, along with a bunch of other archive stuff. What I did was I just took boxes of pictures, not really knowing that they would ever be any good. So my father and Vinny went to California, and they wanted to see what other drag strips were doing. And they went to this old deserted drag strip, and they went to see this man, and he said, come into my trailer, and I want you to listen to something. And he played him the famous Raceway Park tape, the famous ha 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 Raceway Park symbol. Now, when they brought that back to New Jersey, and they went to a radio station to make their first commercial, that laugh was too long.
Oh, ho, 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 ho. Raceway Park!
So they sped it up, and that's when the magic happened.
Oh, Raceway Park!
One thing about the radio commercial that I get asked all the time is, who did it? Who did it probably will never be known. As a kid, I always asked my father who did it, and he would always say it's a little mouse. So when my grandfather heard the radio commercial, he was kind of upset because it was kind of outlandish, but it worked.
The commercial, which turned out to be one of the most recognizable spots in regional advertising history, was an instant success and helped establish Raceway Park as one of the best new tracks in the nation.
The next weekend, after this commercial was put on the radio, they packed the place. They didn't even have ticket booths built. And my Uncle Louie was working at the gate selling tickets, and they were just working out of the trunk. And they filled the trunk with money, and my grandfather at the end of the day looked around and says, this isn't gonna be so bad. The lessons that my father taught me, I hold very dear. One of them is, the most important thing is to be kind to people. My father was a very kind man. So the values of being a good person were definitely instilled to me. When these food stands were built, there was 3 feet of frost in the ground, and they tried to dig the footing for this, and they couldn't do it. They ended up jackhammering the frozen soil to be able to pour the cement. My father always taught me about that, and this was an example of him teaching me all the things that I needed to know to take care of the facility. And if there was ever a footing that I had to dig, which I did dig most of the footings here, you know, you need a good foundation when you're building something. That's where it all starts.
Fueled by that legendary ad campaign, the 70s and 80s saw Raceway Park's popularity boom as both drag racing fans and its most famous drivers would storm its gates.
You know, having the Summer Nationals, I think in 1972, with 60,000 people, that's a big race.
The site of the largest drag race on the eastern seaboard, this is beautiful Raceway Park near Englishtown, New Jersey.
I was fortunate to grow up during the golden age of drag racing. It was an evolving sport that was fueled by cars that were manufactured that could very simply go and drag race. So you had the ability for the regular guy to just get a car and fix it up. They just wanted to get on the track and do a burnout the quarter mile and raise hell in the fields, and we didn't even mind because they kept coming back. It was a business to make money. It just led to some wild times. The noise was loud, but that was part of the show. At night, under the lights and the smoke and all these people, drinking beers and having a great time, definitely was the Wild Wild West. A lot of rules spoil the fun. No rules is better, in my book. I was allowed to just go throughout these things. It was amazing because I was just a little kid from Colts Neck, that liked to fish at the local ponds. The Grateful Dead concert, September 3rd, 1977. I was there. A whole bunch of hippies drinking beer, smoking weed, and having a good old time. The Grateful Dead played here, and this whole area was filled with 150,000 people. The largest concert in New Jersey history. I'm on stage with Jerry Garcia, and I look out over this cloud of smoke and 150,000 people. It was incredible. As a 16-year-old kid that didn't even know who the Grateful Dead was, the name alone scared the shit out of me. Who's Grateful and Dead, I have the only known footage of the Grateful Dead concert from September 3rd, 1977. That blew my mind when I found that. And that was my father just before his operation. All this stuff, without me even realizing, was shaping me to maybe become the person that I needed to be to take over for when he passed away. I consider this an epic find.
Every day for the past 3 years, Rich has been working to salvage the old photos and process all the movie footage from his father's old camera that he never knew existed.
So with every film that I take, to get digitally remastered, there's always an element of surprise. You don't know what you're going to see. And when I first got back my first set of films, I was amazed. Kaboom! And the fans go wild. People like different periods of time in drag racing history. You get your first 200-mile-an-hour run in the 70s, close to 300 miles an hour in the mid-80s, and then you get to 300, and then the 90s they were still going fast and they were running the quarter mile.
But the winds of change were afoot, and the economic, societal, and geographic challenges for Raceway Park were beginning to build.
The world was changing, things were getting more expensive. At the end of the day, getting insurance for what we had to do was becoming impossible. But the noise ordinance, it came from the next town over, Manalapan. There was a lot of new houses being constructed, and the times that we could race slowly became less and less. It was very sad for my father to be able to think that he had flown out in the middle of nowhere with his father to find land, and he was doing what he loved, and it was being encroached on, and there was nothing he could do about it. Manalapan was having trouble with the noise. They sued my father, and we came to an agreement that we would build a sound wall. And behind all these grandstands is a sound wall that prevents quite a bit of the noise that used to take place right here from going over to Manalapan.
Engine 1 out, World Trade Center, 1060. Send every available ambulance, everything you got to World Trade Center now.
9/11/2001. Richard Sr., the father and creator of Raceway Park, was scheduled for surgery to remove a cancerous tumor in Manhattan. Due to the events that day, he would never go.
I turned the TV on, and we saw this, and my father sunk in his chair. He knew that he was in trouble, and that this probably would be the end. He had postponed for a while on having this surgery. He wasn't exactly sure if he wanted it or not. He died day after Christmas, 2001. It's very hard to talk about. I could tell you this, that it was amazing that I didn't cry, but I'd tell you when I did. I got in my father's 55 Thunderbird. I cherished this car, and I put on some music that he liked, and I drove it, and I went into the woods, completely lost it in the woods, in the bushes, laying on the ground. He was an amazing man, you know, he was brilliant. He built things that can only be dreamed of. He was everything, like I've been talking about, you know, him letting me be free. You can only take so many hits in a lifetime, and Raceway Park took many. It wasn't just me. It was, you know, my father, my grandfather, and Vinnie Knapp. It was not easy.
The last hit for Raceway Park may have been the death of beloved driver Scott Coletta, which changed the entire sport of drag racing forever.
NHRA changed drag racing running 1/8 mile from a 1/4 mile.
He believes it was this rule change that would eventually impact attendance and profits.
The algorithm changed, the people stopped coming. It's a fact. It's a fact. When you lose a spectator, it's very, very difficult to get them back. At the very end of the history of drag racing, Raceway Park couldn't pay the property taxes. So I lent the drag strip, Raceway Park, all my money. I mortgaged my house to pay the property taxes. It was an unhealthy time for me mentally, when I kind of was seeing which direction drag racing was going at Raceway Park. It was my heart, it was my soul, it was everything that I loved. I would do anything to have it back the way it was. It was very sentimental for me. I did not enjoy 1 second of having to do what I had to do.
Over 50 years after its first drag racing event, the summer of 2018, Raceway Park would have its last.
still go in. You know, things aren't the same, but I'm semi-retired. I became, I think, the keeper of the archives of Raceway Park. There's no monetary value that I've witnessed yet on what I'm doing. One of the struggles is trying to share hours and hours and hours of films at 90 seconds a time on Instagram or Facebook. It's very difficult. I just feel like in myself I'm doing a good thing. This is some pretty incredible footage of that time period. You know, and I'm truly sorry about what happened to Raceway Park. That's kind of what drives me to be able to share these moments. Just like I talked about the feelings that I get seeing my father drag race in the 50s and the 60s. Maybe I'm giving those feelings back now, and I enjoy it. It's an epic place that will always hold drag racing history that probably will never be duplicated ever again. Anything's possible. It's important for me to stay positive. That's the way I live my life.
Ordinance of the Township of Old Bridge to rezone certain property to be included in the R120 zoning district and to amend the township zoning map accordingly.
Despite hopes that drag racing could return, on May 9th of 2023, Old Bridge Township unanimously voted to rezone the property of Raceway Park, further ensuring that drag racing would never return.
This land was changed, the use was changed. It used to be Raceway Park, and I think if it was still Raceway Park, we wouldn't have this issue. Okay, so things have changed, the land all around it has changed, and we need to rezone, so I vote yes.
Councilperson Walker?
Yes.
And Council President Sohar?
Yes.
That is 7 yeses.
Okay, thank you very much.